Good evening, I'm Adrian Arsenault.
And I'm Andrew Chang. Tonight, reaction from Canadians after voters say an emphatic no to change.
I feel like it was kind of an unnecessary election.
We ask, was the result worth the campaign?
Also tonight, what you can expect from the new minority parliament.
I think what Canadians are going to pay attention to the most is...
Plus, what now for the party leaders? And Rosie is here with that issue.
Jason Kenney shuffles out his health minister, what some party insiders are saying about his leadership.
They disagree on almost everything, but they agree that the premier's got to go.
And the push for an under-12 COVID vaccine.
Children of all ages can be infected and can also transmit.
What new developments mean for Canadians. This is The National.
Well, the polls might have looked pretty good for the Liberals when they called the election, but things changed awfully quickly. And of course, the only poll that truly counts is the one on voting day.
And so last night, Justin Trudeau did not get the majority he was looking for, but Canadians did re-elect a Liberal government. In fact, the country's new electoral map looks remarkably like the last one.
Take a look at where the seat count stands right now, almost identical to where it stood when the last parliament was dissolved. Now, keep in mind, the numbers could still change because mail-in ballots are still being counted and there are still a handful of ridings that are too close to call.
Tonight, as we dig into the results, we're also asking a lot of questions about how the government will now get to work for you, what the future holds for some of the party leaders, and what lessons can be drawn from this whole experience.
But today, there might be an even more urgent question. Was it worth it? Joanna Remiliotis put that to voters.
The election night train, it's already left the station and left some voters wondering if it was worth the ride in the first place.
I think it was a waste of time.
How come?
Because it's the same thing that it's what it was 5 minutes ago.
The day after the night before, it doesn't look very different. But for others, that's not the point.
It is during a pandemic, so that's a little tough. But I think people need to voice their opinions, voice who they believe should be in power and what they should stand for.
An exercise in democracy for some, an expensive exercise in futility for others.
I didn't even wait up for the results because I kind of knew what was going to happen.
Nothing has changed. Nothing.
I'm sure Canadians looking at these results say why.
But for a minority government, nothing ventured, nothing gained, says this expert.
All leaders of minority governments call elections when they think they can grow their vote, and Prime Minister Trudeau is no exception here. Look what's happened, Joanna, in the last 18 months. And for people to have the opportunity to listen to debate, to express their views, I actually think we need to consult voters more, not less.
The timing might make sense, but in the middle of a pandemic, it still didn't go over well for some.
I feel like the same, there was no change, so I feel like it was kind of an unnecessary election.
On the contrary, I feel that the election was necessary and that it demonstrates that a lot of work remains to be done.
A step forward or a step back. Either way, many say they'll just keep moving along, same way they did yesterday. Joanna Remiliotis, CBC News, Toronto.
For the minority Liberals, the task ahead is pretty clear. Find a way to deliver on their promises. Ashley Burke with the priorities and the potential bumps in the road.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
The Prime Minister headed out into the morning rush today, thanking voters in his Papineau riding just hours after giving his speech.
You are sending us back to work with a clear mandate to get Canada through this pandemic.
The party once again fell short of a majority, but the Liberals are putting a positive spin on it.
Prime Minister wins 3 consecutive government in Canada's history. That's a big win. Canadians have made a choice for the Liberal team to move forward.
Move forward on big campaign promises like plans for $10 a day daycare, a new target to cut greenhouse gas emissions, and building 100,000 affordable housing units.
I think what Canadians are going to pay attention to the most is whether the rest of the provinces and territories are going to get on board with Mr. Trudeau for $10 a day childcare spaces, and whether they actually do take quick action on the housing crisis.
Trudeau has deals with 8 provinces and territories on childcare, but when it comes to other promises, there could be tension with premiers over issues like healthcare funding.
He knows very well that I want him to respect Quebec jurisdiction, so there's nothing new and nothing that was not said many times before.
Let's be clear, this was the most pointless election in Canada's history.
Just like before, Trudeau also will have to work with opposition parties to advance his agenda. The NDP says it's ready to cooperate.
If it's something that's going to help people out, make people's lives better, we will not hesitate to provide support to get things done.
Party leaders have another reason to work together. Campaigns are expensive, and right now parties don't have the money to run another one, let alone the political capital to trigger one. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Now, for Conservatives, the questions began almost immediately about what went wrong in the campaign and who is to blame. Hannah Thibodeau looks at the divisions within that party and what it could mean for Erin O'Toole's future as leader.
A subdued Erin O'Toole tried to put a positive spin on his party's loss.
While we didn't get the results we had hoped for, I'm proud of our team for holding the Liberals to a minority in this pandemic election.
O'Toole says that in more than 30 ridings, Conservatives came within 2,000 votes. But close isn't good enough. So today he announced a post-election review.
I want to earn that trust of Canadians, and that's why we're going to work tirelessly to examine what went right, what went wrong.
But does he have the trust of his caucus?
How concerned are you about the rumblings over your leadership?
He sidestepped that question. But his party won 2 fewer seats than Andrew Scheer did in 2019, and Scheer was pressured to step down.
I don't think it's healthy for the party to change leaders every 2 years.
I have 100% confidence. I think Erin, this was his first election as leader.
Some feel the party is in the midst of an identity crisis. O'Toole tried to shift it to the center, even getting the endorsement of former Progressive Conservative PM Brian Mulroney. That risks alienating the right wing of the party.
People are still trying to decide what this Conservative Party is and what it's about. They are going through the conundrum of, is this the party of Stephen Harper or is this a different party?
Some say the post-election review shouldn't even include O'Toole's handling of the campaign.
I think you can make a pretty good case that leadership shouldn't be the primary focus here. There's something about how the party is speaking about conservative issues or the issues that it chooses to highlight that aren't making inroads.
During the campaign, O'Toole was able to dodge some of the trickier questions, like those on gun control and the COVID health pandemic. But the caucus will want straight answers on those questions and more if he hopes to stay on as leader. Hannah Thibodeau, CBC News, Ottawa.
All right, so let's bring in Chief Political Correspondent Rosie Barton. So, Rosie, obviously a similar-looking parliament. For Canadians, though, what can they actually expect from it?
Well, Adrian, you know, we heard a pretty conciliatory tone from the Prime Minister last night, saying he wants Parliament and the government to get back to work. So expect that to happen pretty quickly. That means a new cabinet, a throne speech. Justin Trudeau will probably want to lay that out in the next couple of days, I'd say. As to those big promises, some can move ahead without much difficulty. A national childcare plan. The Liberals got 8 provinces signed up before the election, and there are premiers who could use a political win and might want to sign up now, Ontario and Alberta. The urgency of dealing with the pandemic is also obviously going to be an early priority. What we don't know right now, though, is how difficult the opposition will make it to govern. They weren't thrilled. There was an election, as you know. They sure weren't thrilled with the outcome. So how does that translate into cooperation inside the House? That's not really clear.
Okay, so what does this mean, though, for the party leaders going forward?
Yeah, lots of questions there. Let's put aside Justin Trudeau for a moment. He can certainly chart the course of the rest of his career, think about legacy pieces, all of that. But there is already some pressure around Erin O'Toole today saying really all the right things to his party about moving forward. The question is, how many election cycles do Conservatives want to go through without a win? And if there's a chance they aren't fighting Justin Trudeau in the next election, is there someone waiting in the wings who wants to take that chance? I would also say it's all but sure that the Green Party leader, Annamie Paul, is done. She has suggested that it has already crossed her mind. She placed 4th in her own race. So lots of political futures in doubt after these results, Adrian.
All right, Rosie, thank you.
Thank you.
And the tireless Rosie will be back a little later with the At Issue panel. Andrew, Chantal, and Althea will be here with their takes on the election results.
Now, as we mentioned, some ridings are still too close to call, in part because pandemic safety measures have delayed the count. Take Fredericton, for example. Liberal Jenica Atwin is leading Conservative Andrea Johnson by just 499 votes. And the CBC decision desk can't make a confident projection because there's still more than 2,200 mail-in ballots that need to be counted. And Elections Canada says that could take days. Those ballots were just one factor in delaying the final tallies. Thomas Douglas shows us what voters were up against and what the impact could be.
In a pandemic, Election Day really goes on all week, with Elections Canada staff still verifying, then counting an unprecedented number of mail-in ballots, making sure no one voted twice.
In places where there were a lot of mail-in ballots, it could be Thursday or Friday, because we're just trying to make sure we're carefully following every step.
Even by this afternoon, CBC News was unable to project results in 15 ridings, with vote counts coming in so slowly. And the pandemic brought other trouble too.
Honestly, the locations weren't very convenient.
I didn't like the lines very much. I live downtown Toronto.
Indeed, in the biggest cities like Montreal and Toronto, voters endured huge lineups well into the night. Some queues kept going and going, a whole city block and beyond.
Finally, after 3 hours, we got to vote. How ridiculous.
Have you ever seen anything like that before?
No, it's way too long.
The University of British Columbia may have seen the worst wait of all, with the last voter only emerging at 10:38 p.m. Pacific.
About 3.5 hours.
And was it worth it?
I don't know. It's tough to say. It seems like it was already kind of like decided.
Today, Elections Canada acknowledged we know we did not meet all voters' expectations in terms of accessibility at UBC.
And elsewhere, too, with the sight of long lineups, consider how many voters may have just walked away. So far, turnout looks to be lower than last time.
A downward trend can't be allowed to start now, this expert warns, so lessons must be learned.
Listen to people, make elections meaningful, and then people will engage, even if they might have to wait a little bit longer in line.
Getting through the pandemic is the first step toward a more normal vote. Thomas Dagle, CBC News, Toronto.
Now, one dynamic that changed during the course of this election, the growth of voter support for the People's Party of Canada. Ellen Morrow looks at the influence it might have had.
To a crowd of maskless supporters, Maxime Bernier spun his party's results as a great success.
My friends, this is not just a political party. It is a movement.
But the leader, who repeatedly ignored public health orders, failed to win his seat. None of his party's candidates did. Still, the People's Party of Canada more than doubled its votes from the 2019 election, winning 5% of the national total, beating the Green Party.
It really looks like it's the protest vote, the people who are frustrated with lockdowns, people who are frustrated with vaccine mandates.
In several ridings, the PPC vote may have tipped the balance.
In this riding in southern Ontario, the Liberal candidate beat the Conservative by just 1% of the vote, while the PPC candidate took 7% of the vote. So even if just some of their supporters here backed the Conservatives instead, it likely would have made a difference in this riding.
And that's not lost on Conservative voters in Kitchener South, Hespeler.
Do you think that they took away the Conservatives' chances of winning?
Possible. And that would make me upset because I really wanted the Conservatives in.
Absolutely, yes. The PPC just took away the opportunity right now for next to nothing. They don't have no one in power, and they haven't won anything. So it's kind of disappointing.
But it's not that simple, says this analyst.
A sizable block of these voters are very alienated with the system. They're not necessarily ideologically conservative. They're just anti-system, very frustrated, and they wouldn't necessarily show up to the polls.
This time they were galvanized by anti-mask, anti-vaccine rhetoric. The question now, will the party recede in a post-pandemic world, or will it wield lasting influence in Canadian politics? Ellen Morrow, CBC News, Cambridge, Ontario.
Now, the federal election may not have changed the political landscape much, but COVID-19 certainly has. Alberta's Premier Jason Kenney has been skewered for his pandemic response, and as Erin shows us tonight, he's trying to change course.
Alberta hospitals bursting at the seams, a healthcare system buckling under a relentless fourth wave. The province forced to ask the federal government for help to airlift COVID patients out and get more ICU staff in. Those jammed hospitals leading to political pressure too. The Premier forced to relieve some today, shuffling his cabinet, appointing a new health minister to handle Alberta's COVID response.
I have accepted Minister Shandro's resignation as Minister of Health. It is time for a fresh start and a new set of eyes on the largest department in the government, especially at a time such as this.
But some frontline workers say change is needed at the top too.
The architects of this problem still remain in power, and so we really need to have consequences for all of those who were designing this intentionally cruel wave.
The Premier struggling to prevent the wheels from falling off his UCP government. Calls for him to step down growing louder inside his own party. This former rival for the UCP leadership already hinting at a comeback.
It seems that over the last couple weeks, they're coalescing and they agree. They disagree on almost everything, but they agree that the Premier's got to go.
All this as Alberta's new optional vaccine passport system comes into effect. Businesses able to opt in, avoiding restrictions by serving only the fully vaccinated. A last-ditch attempt to slow the spread of COVID-19 and boost vaccinations.
Obviously, hospitalizations and numbers are not going the right way, and we want to do our best part to get those numbers back down.
Jason Kenney is caught between a rock and a hard place. Opponents on the left and the right upset with his handling of the pandemic. The Premier struggling to contain Alberta's growing COVID crisis while fighting for his political life. Erin Collins, CBC News, Calgary.
And just today, Alberta reported 29 COVID deaths, its worst single-day death toll since January. The province leads Canada's fourth wave, but the trend varies. Take a look at where the pandemic is heading elsewhere in the country. Hospitals in all these provinces face pandemic pressure, but in Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, and Nova Scotia, daily new cases and patients in ICUs are relatively flat compared to a week ago. In Saskatchewan, though, both new cases and ICU patients are up, breaking new records. After recently announcing action including mask mandates, today the Premier signaled no new measures.
We did do more. As I explained, the decisions that we had made over the course of the past week are by no means insignificant.
Nowhere is growth faster than in New Brunswick. Over the course of a week, case growth is up a shocking 100%. ICU occupancy 88%. Its Premier reintroducing mask mandates just this week.
We will act in any way necessary to bring this under control.
And British Columbia is in flux. The rate of new cases in the past week declining while the number of ICU patients rises. One region particularly hard hit.
The North is being overstretched by COVID-19.
Patients in BC's north are now being relocated to other regions.
Now, anti-vaccine protesters continue to make their voices heard. We've seen them gather outside hospitals, but in BC recently, schools were also targeted. Susanna De Silva looks at how parents are responding and what the province is doing.
There is laws, and you're going to learn them.
Anti-vaccine protesters were out again in Salmon Arm today.
I support doing what it takes to have this whole program stopped.
We wanted to see the procedures as to how they are going about informing the children.
Last Friday, this same group confronted healthcare workers administering vaccines in a school parking lot. But this group claims they were not the ones responsible for taking their protests right inside some local schools.
I felt that was a gross violation.
This woman's son was in one of the schools. We're protecting her identity as she's worried about being targeted. Luckily, she says her 8-year-old didn't see the protesters.
Because he's autistic, it takes him a little bit of time to process stuff, and he has to vocalize things, and he would bring that up for months on end in order to be able to kind of understand why there were strangers at his school.
The targeting of schools in any way has left many angry.
I think it's way over the line.
There's a place and a time and a process for showing your discontent, but schools and hospitals are not the places.
The district says they're going to bring in new security measures, including locking the doors at elementary and middle schools. Healthcare facilities have also been targeted. Now the BC government is considering possible legal measures to create protest-free zones around schools and hospitals.
All options are going to be reviewed. We are working very closely with districts and with that team to ensure that schools are safe. So we're keeping a very close eye on what's happening out there.
Basically, this email was just saying that they were going to be hosting a clinic.
For this mother, locked doors are reassuring, but she worries about a vaccine clinic planned at her son's school tomorrow.
I'm more concerned about him witnessing protesters outside, whether that be just standing around the school or at the windows or whatever.
She says she may keep her son home. Susanna De Silva, CBC News, Vancouver.
COVID-19 vaccines for kids could be just around the corner.
We have 3 kids under the age of 12, so we're hoping that this will happen fast.
Coming up, are doctors on board with giving kids the vaccine? Plus,
after an election where little changed, will parties play nice?
Some have talked about division, but that's not what I see.
Rosie's back with the At Issue panel for an election post-mortem.
It's the beginning of the Mid-Autumn Festival, and the real star is a little piece of pastry.
I'm addicted to mooncakes. I have to not buy mooncake.
A celebrity chef explains the festival's centerpiece. We are back in 2. Johnson & Johnson says a second shot of its COVID-19 vaccine substantially boosts protection against the virus. Originally touted as a one-and-done vaccine, the company says the effectiveness of a second dose is 94% against moderate to severe COVID cases. A single dose has 72% effectiveness. This week, Pfizer announced that clinical trials show promising results in children under the age of 12 and as young as 5. If that eventually leads to wider approved use in Canada, Vicodopia shows us what it could mean.
There's a lot Mary Beth Kyer and Brad McCabe's children have missed out on in the pandemic: rugby, hockey, and skiing. But getting vaccinated could change that.
We're just really excited to be able to. We have 3 kids under the age of 12, so we're hoping that this will happen fast.
They just want to have time with their friends where they're not worried about, can they do this, can they do that?
Pfizer says its latest clinical trial results for children under 12 are promising.
The level of antibody the vaccine is generating in children 5 to 11 matches the level of antibody that we know provides protection for individuals 16 years of age and older.
The company tells CBC News it'll apply to Health Canada for approval, though it couldn't say when. But we already know the vaccine dosage will be smaller for younger kids. 2 shots, 10 micrograms each instead of 30, as for people 12 years old and up. But even young kids who are large for their age should still get the same protection as older children.
Children's immune systems are much more vigorous than somebody who's like 70 or 60 or 50 or 40. Or 20 even. And that's why they respond so well.
Although young children are at much lower risk of severe COVID-19 than adults, the number of kids testing positive is growing in some places. Last week in Saskatchewan, at least 20% of cases were of people under 12.
It's been demonstrated that children of all ages can be infected and can also transmit. There are different degrees. Some transmit better than others. But for sure, they play a role in the pandemic, and right now we're seeing that.
If the Pfizer vaccine is approved for use in 5 to 11-year-olds in Canada, more than 2 million children will be eligible to get the shot. Vicodopia, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, before some provincial vaccine passports come into effect, sports leagues say no vaccine, no entry.
I don't think any of these teams want their game to be a super spreader event.
But how are fans reacting?
But first, Rosie is back with that issue. Hi there.
Hey Adrian. We are going to take a closer look, obviously, at what the results mean for this minority parliament, for Justin Trudeau, and for Erin O'Toole. Chantal, Andrew, Althea joining us again for another night right after this. Justin Trudeau said he wanted to give Canadians a choice, and last night Canadians chose another Liberal minority government, leaving this parliament looking a lot like the last.
Canadians have chosen a progressive plan. Some have talked about division, but that's not what I see.
But that plan will require cooperation, sending a message back to Ottawa that the work is far from over.
I hear you when you say that you just want to get back to the things you love, not worry about this pandemic or about an election. That you just want to know that your members of Parliament of all stripes will have your back through this crisis and beyond.
So was last night's win still a win for the Liberals? What does it mean for Parliament? At Issue is here for a special Tuesday post-election panel. Really, they're just on every day now, we've decided. Chantal Hébert, Andrew Coyne, and Althea Raj. Thanks. Good to see all of you here. You've all had a bit of time to sleep and reflect on the results now. And I wonder what you're thinking about today in relation to Justin Trudeau's political gamble here. Althea, I'll start with you.
It didn't work. I have spent a fair bit of time thinking about why he didn't ask the country for majority government and wondering if maybe if he had just been more plain and obvious about it, if he actually might have gotten a lot closer to that objective. I don't have a clear answer. I've spoken to a lot of smarter people than I and Liberals about this decision. It was, they thought about it and they decided that they might get punished for it. But that is something that I have been thinking a lot about. Otherwise, it's so uncanny. I don't want to say that no effort has gone into it because we're kind of pretending that this is exactly like 2019. A lot of effort went into getting the exact same result, but it's really weird.
Yeah, Andrew, I don't know if you've thought about that. That's an interesting question Althea poses there. If you had been more transparent about wanting a majority, what would have happened, I guess?
I'm not sure that would have been helpful either, but it's certainly true that there was an element of falseness at the heart of both the Conservative and the Liberal campaigns that did them in. The Conservative campaign, which we can discuss, was that, well, we've been made over into this moderate party and we don't have any of these lunatic fringes anymore. And the Liberal thing was, well, we're going to ask for a majority without ever mentioning the word majority. That we're going to say that we're going to have this huge consequential election with all these big choices and then not actually put any big choices in front of people. Nothing that he wanted to do, with the majority, he could not have done without it. And ultimately, that's, if there's a core to your campaign that just basically isn't true, ultimately that's going to come out.
Okay, Chantal, your thoughts?
If there had been a rationale beyond convenience for a majority, I'm sure the Liberals would have made that case. But in any event, if there had been a will to hand Justin Trudeau a majority to reward him for his management of the pandemic, it wasn't on offer the night before, last night. That being said, a win is a win. Yeah. You are much better off waking up in the Prime Minister's chair than the alternative. And up to a point, part of the gamble from the Liberals' perspective was either you win a majority or you win what you already have. Right. So it's not a win-lose situation. And Justin Trudeau is fortunate in the sense that he is getting a minority that is as comfortable when it comes to numbers as the previous one, in the sense that he only needs the NDP or the Bloc to get anything done. He doesn't need two parties to support him.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that. But go ahead, Andrew. Yep.
Well, I agree that it's better to wake up as the Prime Minister than not as the Prime Minister. I think it's probably better to wake up not having called an election that you hope to get a majority with than having done so. And basically, up until now, he had a gun he could hold to the heads of the opposition leaders. He held that gun, he pulled the trigger, and all the chambers were blank. So nobody wants an election anytime soon. But I also think this diminishes him to some extent. It shows he is not the political force he once was. I think that was clear as of 2019, but it's even clearer now. And I think it very clearly makes him a lame duck Prime Minister now. I think there's a lot of Liberals who would not like to see him take them into the next election. And I think you're seeing some of the leadership contenders already warming up in the bullpen.
Oh, I don't know about.
Okay, go ahead, Althea. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I agree with everything Andrew said. In fact, I wrote about that last night, but I don't think that there is necessarily an expiry date on Justin Trudeau. I think that people are going to hold their fire. And if he, there were kind of two Justin Trudeaus that we saw during this election campaign. There was the Justin Trudeau of the first 2 weeks, I'd say, who looked like he wasn't really in the game. And then the Justin Trudeau that showed up towards the end of the campaign. And if that Justin Trudeau is the guy who's prime minister for the next 3 years, he may very well decide that he wants another mandate. And I don't think anybody in caucus or nipping outside of caucus would be there to stop him. That being said, he's always said that he was interested in 3 mandates, and maybe this is the last one.
Chantal.
Well, 2 things. 4 consecutive mandates, go back. You're not going to find very many 4th mandates, not without losing an election for 1, 2. Yes, but a lot of the Liberal goodwill is based on the assumption that 3 mandates is going to be it. And that at some point of his own choosing, Justin Trudeau is going to go. What I'm interested in, and the next 2 years will tell that, is whether knowing that you are free from running or leading the party in your mind in another election, do you then turn to your legacy items and ensure that they are actually accomplished? And we will know that over the next year.
Yeah, I think that's a super interesting question too, and it also leads me to ask this question that Lisa Raitt sort of put forward in our broadcast last night was, do you think that these parties will be angry or more divisive or harder to work with when the House returns, Andrew?
I think there'll be a period when there will be a simulacrum of, we've all heard the message we should work together. Everyone will try to be painting the others as the uncooperative ones. But ultimately, the usual political imperatives will reassert themselves, I don't think, before too long.
Althea, quickly, last word on that.
I was surprised that Yves-François Blanchet, the Bloc leader, was really the only one to talk about this in his speeches in the speeches last night, by saying that he planned to reach out to all the parties to basically give them an olive branch and say he wants to work with them, including burying the hatchet with the NDP, who they've had very acrimonious relationships. I don't know that we're going to hear that from the Conservatives, but I could see the 3 other parties working closely together.
20 seconds, Chantal, you can have it.
We're going into a provincial cycle. The Conservatives are going to be interested in what happens to their government in Ontario. There's a crisis around Jason Kenney in Alberta, and the NDP has a chance of coming back. There's an election coming in Quebec where Yves-François Blanchet has an interest. Seriously, over the next year, I think the scene moves to provincial elections.
Well, that's fine with me. I'll take a little break. And speaking of breaks, we're going to take a quick one here, too. We'll be back with another round of At Issue. We're going to take a look at Erin O'Toole's message after last night's loss.
I will be ready to lead Canada's Conservatives to victory.
But the question, will his party let him? That's next.
We also didn't win the trust to a level we needed in parts of the GTA, some parts of the country that we have to do better. That's why we're going to undertake a review to make sure we learn the lessons. That's what a leader does. Make sure we are prepared next time.
Conservative leader Erin O'Toole sharing his thoughts today about what went wrong for his party this election. Also, he shared thoughts about what went right, according to him. What does this mean for his future as leader? Chantal, Andrew, Althea back for another round of At Issue. Chantal, I thought his message today was like he hit the right notes, indicating what he needed to say to his own party and the things he was willing to do to review how things went. Do you think that he can convince them that he should get another try at this?
Well, it depends who them is. His first concern is to get backing from his caucus. I understand that he wants to do this sooner rather than later, and that is strategically the thing to do. Why? Because there are MPs in that caucus who actually believe it's important to continue to bring the party closer to the center. But there will also be a number of new MPs who won't be in the mood to come to Ottawa, and the first thing they do is vote against the leader who got them elected. So if he can get caucus support, it becomes harder for various factions who do want his head to come after it, because they will not have a channel to do so.
Andrew?
Erin O'Toole will try to make it out that this was just a problem of tactics, that we didn't execute well enough in the election. His critics will say, oh, the problem is leadership. I think the party's problems are deep-seated in both of those. What you saw in this election was an attempt to kind of single-handedly drag the party in a certain direction without a great deal of consultation. It was essentially just a fait accompli. And it was sort of masked over with his own adroitness at sort of sitting on two sides of every issue up to a point, and then eventually it started to crack. And he was having to rewrite his platform on the fly on certain issues, certain important issues like guns, like carbon taxes, et cetera. And ultimately that, the people who've been willing to give the Conservatives a look in the early part of the campaign, I think, shrank back after that. So this is not a party even now that sounds confident in itself, sounds willing to share its full agenda with the public and trust the public to be able to support them. It's one thing to move to the middle, and that's got to be part of it. You've got to be within range of where the voters are. But you also have to be able to move the voters to you. If you're not actually trying to put out something that's a little different than the other parties and trying to persuade people to your point of view, what are you in politics for?
Okay, Althea, your thoughts on whether Mr. O'Toole will be able to stay?
He will push for the adoption of the Reform Act. He pushed for this in 2019, I understand, and caucus decided not to adopt it. If they do adopt it, there probably will be a leadership review because there's definitely 25 MPs who would want to have a review. But if he, to Chantal's point, if he gets approval of caucus, if those caucus members who are very upset with him don't win, he gets to go to the members and basically argue, like, even caucus doesn't want me out. Why would you do this? There are two avenues for the membership to vote him out. One, not next year, the year after. The other one is a referendum. That one might actually happen because it only needs 50,000 members to ask for it. I would say that I did not listen to the same press conference, I feel, Rosie, than you did, because I felt like he was not listening to the questions, was giving the same wooden answers that he's given throughout this entire election campaign. He was elected on the promise that he was going to grow the party in the GTA, and that's why he was focused there. But he needs to realize that he's actually lost a lot of, in British Columbia, they lost seats around Vancouver. I mean, there are deep problems in that party, and perhaps the alliances that they have built between the social conservatives and the nationalists in Quebec is not the alliance that they want. Maybe the alliance that they need is to come out swinging against Bill 21 and to be an urban party that respects freedom of religion, that creates different wedge issues with the Liberal Party. And there's a number of alternatives for them, but the leader does not seem to want to have those conversations.
I mean, that sounds not unlike what Andrew's saying there. Instead of just moving to the middle, find a way to get people to move towards you, which I think is a very astute. Chantal, last word to you.
Of course, if Mr. O'Toole wants to start a battle against Bill 21, he can kiss goodbye to his Quebec caucus.
Well, he has so few of them. The growth potential in Ontario is much larger.
They happen to be the most likely to support him continuing as leader.
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly with that. I think that explains a lot of the strategy in the last election campaign. I'm just not sure if you're going to do a review, maybe you should do a full review.
So, last point on that, Chantal. If that doesn't happen this time, because I would argue it did not happen in 2019 either with Andrew Scheer, how does that party move forward?
Well, Jean Chrétien had a great line about Stockwell Day. It would help if he said the same thing from one day to the next and stuck to his positions. I think at some point it would help the Conservatives if they stuck with their leader for more than one election.
Okay, that's a good place to end it. Great conversation tonight. Thank you for being with us for many days in a row. I appreciate it. Althea, Chantal, and Andrew, thank you so much. Okay, and now it's back to Adrian and Andrew in Toronto.
Indeed. Thanks very much, Rosie. And next on The National, if you want to see a big game, you'll need to be vaccinated. But it's not the same for everyone.
That's a bit bizarre that fans have to be vaccinated and players are not.
What to expect after this. Well, look at that. Massive bursts of thick molten lava continue to ravage the Spanish island of La Palma. The eruptions that started Sunday have destroyed nearly 200 homes and have created some 6,000 evacuees, and authorities are warning of more danger. Chemical reactions, even explosions, once the lava reaches the sea. Well, starting tomorrow in Ontario, you're going to need proof of vaccination to enter a number of businesses like gyms and restaurants. But in some settings, this has already been the norm. Jamie Strachan looks at how pro sports teams have been keeping fans safe and why some athletes say the policies don't go far enough.
For Toronto Blue Jay fans, attending a game in the midst of a pandemic means bringing more than their enthusiasm to the park.
I got my electronic ticket, I got my vaccination thing, I got my mask, I got an extra mask in my bag.
The Blue Jays are one of a growing number of Canadian teams requiring fans 12 and over to show proof of vaccination before entering.
I want everybody to be vaccinated that's going in, that I'm going to be sort of in contact with. I think the passports are very important.
In Ontario, the Jays and others have taken the lead, introducing this policy before a similar provincial mandate.
But the only way you're going to see a live game is by having proof of a vaccine and get your vaccine.
Most CFL teams are also requiring proof of vaccination. So too will Canada's NHL teams.
We wanted the best chance to have fans back in the building.
Dishes it down to Cody Eakin. Another rebound score!
Teams like the Winnipeg Jets say not only does the policy make public health sense, but it's what fans want.
Overwhelmingly, they shared with us that they wanted to see the people sitting back beside them double vaxxed. I think absolutely it is helping on the ticket sales front. People are looking for that extra comfort.
Experts say these policies were inevitable.
I don't think any of these teams want their game to be a super spreader event. I think they want to protect their fans. I think they want to protect the community.
South of the border, some teams have implemented similar policies, but many have not. The Buffalo Bills are one of only 2 NFL teams demanding that fans be vaccinated. As for the athletes, most leagues are not requiring them to get the shot. In tennis, there are some star players who haven't.
To me, that's a bit bizarre that fans have to be vaccinated and players are not. So I think that, in my opinion, it's inevitable that it will be mandated at some point, like other leagues are doing. I don't see the point of stalling it.
Off to left field, it's
For fans in Canada, it's all about safety and getting back to cheering on their favorite teams in person. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
One of Canada's most well-known hockey voices will not be returning this NHL season.
Justin Brown up the middle, a breakaway for Alex Belloff. Great save, Golondo.
Canucks fans know the voice very well, as do hockey fans across the league. Jim Hughson, the longtime play-by-play commentator, is retiring after a 42-year career. His Hall of Fame run included Hockey Night in Canada and a dozen Stanley Cup finals, plus 2 World Series and 2 Olympic Games.
Well, today is the start of what's known in many Asian cultures as the Mid-Autumn or Moon Festival. And at the center of the celebration, a tasty little treat.
The moon cake is symbolic of the perfect circle of the moon.
Coming up, celebrity chef Susur Lee explains why he just can't get enough of them in our moment.
So today, the Moon Festival kicked off. This is a celebration of the harvest for many Asian cultures, and it happens every year around the full moon in autumn, which you might have seen last night, unless you were in a studio doing election stuff. And there is something totally delicious that symbolizes the festival, an appropriately named mooncake. So we tapped celebrity chef Susur Lee to explain why it's addicting, as only a chef can do. That's our moment.
I addicted to mooncakes. I have to not buy mooncake because I love the decadence of, in terms of the duck egg yolk and also the lotus paste, the sweetness and the sourness and also the pastry. It's just really brought me back to childhood, which is just one of the most decadent things you can try in Chinese dessert. They preserve the duck egg yolk. They use salt. So it does have that really richness, like buttery. At the same time, it's very fatty. You have new invention of mooncakes made out of mochi, ice cream inside, even soft with whipping cream, all kinds of stuff that people are inventing it. When you cut the mooncake, my parents used to be very superstitious. My mom said, "Oh no 4 pieces, only 8 pieces every time when you cut it open."
It's funny. I don't think I've ever had a mooncake before because I have, as you know, I have pretty severe food allergies, right? And I was allergic to eggs when I was a kid. So far as I know, you can't make a mooncake without egg, and sometimes they even have nuts in them. I'm allergic to nuts.
That would be a disaster for you.
Yeah, for all kinds of reasons. I just never had one.
Well, maybe you, now I'm very sad about that. One of the good things about his interviews, he talks about one of the best things, you don't have to do the tasting, it's just the experience of sharing. Good at breakfast, lunch, dinner, or maybe after a show. That is the National for September 21st. Good night.
Good night.